Calaroga Shark Media.
Hey there, Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. I stumbled across this clip. A comedian by the first name of Nate shared this on Twitter. He was a guest on Woody and Wilcox, and they are struggling with saying this dude's last name the way I have been for exactly the same reasons. If you listen to the first 4 years of this podcast, you heard me just roll through Nate Bargatze, and then I started to notice the same things that these folks did. Let's listen.
And you said your name differently than I say your name. You are always Nate Bargatze to me, and then I heard you say Bargatze.
Yes, I think we could say it wrong as our family.
So you think maybe I'm right and you're wrong?
It's like I know Fallon says Bargatze, and like I think that's like a New York, like Italian, like you say Bargatze, and then I think our Southern accent has turned it to Bargatze.
Oh, man, now I'm all kinds of self-conscious. All right, Nate Bargatze opened up about pursuing his dream of comedy. He spoke to Parade Magazine and said, I've always just done stand-up. I want to be able to create movies that hopefully the whole family can come out to. I was never great at auditioning for other people's movies, so I kind of figured I have to make my own. He's working on a film called The Breadwinner, and he says he would love to star in a remake of 1966's The Ghost and Mr. Chicken. Nate B explains, I love Don Knotts. I don't think I could do what Don Knotts does. I'd probably still go with Don Knotts, to be honest. Even though I traveled back in time, they'd go, nonetheless, we're going to stick with Don Knotts. But, you know, that's the stuff that I loved. It was just super fun and silly. He also has a book coming out in May, Big Dumb Eyes, Stories from a Simpler Mind. I got to nag the publicist. I put in that request months ago. They probably forgot about me. He says the book is just telling stories that have happened to me, stuff that sometimes doesn't always work in stand-up. I read Paul Reiser's book when I first started comedy, and I remember really laughing at it. I was just reading it in his rhythm and his voice, and I liked it so much. The LA Times asked Gabe Iglesias about his style, you know, Hawaiian shirts, shorts, and Kangol caps. And they're curious if that evolved over time, or did he always dress like that on stage? Fluffy said, when I first started doing stand-up in 97, everybody was wearing dark colors. It was all about the cool dark shirt, the leather jacket, the black suit button-up. I asked myself, how am I going to be different here and also comfortable? Because I didn't want to wear a suit. I didn't want to wear a suit when I had the 9 to 5, and I don't want to wear it now to do this. I remember watching Robin Williams, who was one of my comedy heroes, and he was always into Hawaiian shirts. It's just bright, colorful, nothing threatening about that, unless you're Scarface. If you're wearing a Hawaiian shirt, you're here to have a good time. With the shorts, same thing. I want to be comfortable. I'm a California guy. We wear shorts here. You don't want to have things that are memorable aside from having a great presence on stage. People are visual, so what do they remember? They remember the comedian that wears the Hawaiian shirt. When I watched his recent special, the new one, that shirt he's wearing pops. It's like electric red. Looks great. The nickname Fluffy came about because I tried using Gabriel Iglesias. I thought that was a beautiful, nice, wonderful name, and nobody remembered Iglesias. At the end of the night, they remembered Fluffy. And that's why I stuck with that. A lot of times you'll try something, you don't give it enough time to catch, and I learned a lot of that from watching wrestling. They give a guy enough time, you're like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, and then finally I get it. That's why every single special I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt, shorts, and then with time the Kangol cap started happening, so now it's part of the style. It was planned a long time ago, and I just stayed with it and didn't change. Good follow-up from the LA Times. Where'd you learn about branding and marketing when it comes to comedy? Gabe said, before I got into comedy, I was actually working a lot in sales. I was always watching how people would promote their products and stuff like that. I worked inside of a Walmart, inside of a kiosk, selling cell phones back in the day, so we're always trying to come up with ideas how to brand things better. I also go back to wrestling on this one. I watch a lot of wrestling, and I see how they do their promos, how they dress, the lighting, the sound, the experience. A lot of that goes into it, and I didn't have the idea of branding early on. I think a lot of times entertainers don't take themselves serious enough to be considered a brand. I didn't like the nickname Fluffy at first because it made me think of a cat or pillows or comforters or cotton candy, but the name stuck. A friend of mine many years ago said, look, man, we'll get these algorithms going and trust me, the internet's going to take off. That's how far back we were talking about. He goes, we'll start branding this now and you watch what happens. And he was right, you know. If you Google Fluffy, I'm the number one thing that pops up. Time magazine talked to Roy Wood Jr., and they were curious. He worked at Golden Corral in college, and what did he learn from working at Golden Corral? Roy said, I feel like every American should either serve a year in the military or 2 years in food service. Both will give you differing perspectives on society and how to treat people and how fortunate you are. At Golden Corral, you serve everyone from 8-year-olds to 80-year-olds, from weird tables full of college kids to white supremacists. And you don't even realize the guy's a white supremacist till you see his white power tat on his knuckles as you're refilling his sweet tea for the third time. When I started doing stand-up comedy, a lot of my jokes were 2 or 3 sentence greeting bits that I did earlier that day on shift. I could take a quick little observational joke, and by the end of my shift, have it worded in a way that it works in any demographic. You start noticing that we do have a lot of things that connect us. That was a very, very special time in my life. Time was curious. Does Trump winning make you happier or sadder that you weren't tapped to host The Daily Show? Roy said Trump's win or loss doesn't change their job as political satirists to jump down the throat of whatever government is and isn't doing right. I think the difference becomes figuring out a new way to get people who love Trump but ignore facts to pay attention to facts. If you still want to vote for him at the end of that analysis, cool. But there's been a big disconnect between what is considered entertainment and what is considered news, and the public no longer cares about the difference so long as they're entertained. Bob Marley was talking to the Rutland Herald about the weather and said, we just had snow and then we had 57 and rain. When I was a kid, I just remember snowbanks being 25 feet high. Or was it because I was 2 feet tall? You just look at everything as big. You look at your dad like, my dad's a huge man and my parents are geniuses. And then you turn 14 and you're like, these people know nothing. Bob then talked about his family, saying, these people are insane. My cousin just passed away. It was awful, but my family's so messed up. I call my sister and I go, we're going to the funeral. And she goes, I'm not going up there. I gained so much weight. I'm too fat. And I go, you're too fat to funeral? Is Father O'Malley on the front step of the church going to say, sorry for your loss, please step on the scale? I don't know if you know this, Saturday Night Live's turning 50 this year. There's a whole bunch of specials out. Marcy Klein was a producer and head of talent at the show from 95 to 2012. She told one of the docs, there's a lot of people that I brought in, and I'm like, I can't believe we're not hiring that person. Lorne Michaels himself tells the story. I wasn't at the Jim Carrey audition. Somebody who was there said, I don't think Lorne would like it, and they were probably wrong. Other people who didn't make it, Kevin Hart, Mindy Kaling, Donald Glover, Jordan Peele, Stephen Colbert. Colbert was watching his own audition tape and said, I feel perfectly fine with that effort, and I probably felt okay then until I didn't get it. Back in 2015, Lorne Michaels tried to explain why Jim Carrey didn't get the show, and he said, no one gets it all right. And that is your comedy news for today. If you enjoy the program, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you like talking comedy, join us in the Facebook group. It's Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. See you tomorrow.